Hello and welcome to another GTN show. On this week's show, some new tech which you can win. Plus, we spoke to Frodeno about how successful Nice was. Not in his Nice, but in general. Plus, we have all our usual news, reacts, and race recaps.
And I'm also going to be jumping in with some updates from the men's Ironman World Championships here in Nice.
Starting the show as we usually do with some reacts, some stuff that we've noticed on the internet over the last week. Obviously, social media has mostly been filled with the Ironman World Champs. So I'm not going to harp on too much about that because, well, I guess you've probably all social media'd out on that. But someone else was racing this weekend, none other than Javier Gomez. Yep, he's back to racing and winning. He did Olympic distance non-drafting event in Spain and took the win there, and it is great to see the great Javier Gomez back on a race course and back racing. It's getting a little long in the tooth, so I'm not sure how many more races he's going to do, but hopefully we'll see him on one of the real big start lines in the not too distant future, because it'd be great to see how he holds up against all these young guns. We'll get to some of those race results that we're talking about later on. Meanwhile, at the World Championships, Leon Chevalier took 5th, which very impressive. But more impressive than that, he wore a GTN shirt at the post-race press conference. Awesome. It is last year's Kona shirt, and you can now buy this year's Kona shirt. We'll get him a new one. But thanks, Leon, for wearing that. Also, Braden Curry put this post up on social media, on Instagram, after the race. Braden Curry was one of the favourites going in. There was a lot of talk about him. He had got second at the Ironman World Champs in St. George, so definitely a favourite, but it didn't really go according to plan. Unfortunately, what happened was Braden Curry got a littering penalty. What he said happened was he tried to throw his bottle whilst in the litter zone, but there was someone standing right there, or riding there. I wasn't really sure what he meant, but he didn't want to throw a bottle and hit someone in the head. So he waited for a couple of seconds and then threw it, and he was 5 meters outside the litter zone. And then a referee probably came up to him and gave him a 5-minute penalty for that, for throwing his bottle in the wrong place. Understandably, that took a bit of the wind out of his sails, but he did feel like it was a completely unfair penalty. He came into transition a little bit down on where he might have been otherwise. And then all his friends and family started screaming at him, saying, just run, just do your run, finish your race, and you can protest later on, which he did do, albeit with a bit of the wind taken out of his sails. He then protested after the race to the race officials using the standard protest protocol. And he was DQ'd 30 seconds after crossing the finish line, disqualified, taken off the results. He then protested. The protest process went into the night, and eventually they overturned both his littering penalty and also his disqualification. So he's reinstated into the results, only in 16th place, which is not what he was hoping for. But yeah, very frustrating to see his race being what it turns out was an unfair penalty, and his race being derailed by that. There were a few other penalties handed out on the day, not as many as we have seen in the past in Kona. Notable one was Brad Weiss, who did get a penalty, drafting penalty, served 5 minutes and still managed to finish 7th on the day. Not nice to see penalties affecting the outcome of the race, especially when they ended up being overturned anyway, and therefore were, as the race referees have decided, an unfair penalty. Very frustrating. Also, last week we found out that the PTO Athlete of the Month for August was none other than Taylor Knibb. Congratulations to Taylor Knibb. Not really surprising. Taylor Knibb did win the PTO US Open, and then at the end of the month, she won the 70.3 World Championships in Lahti, Finland. And in between those two races, she came 5th at the Paris test event to stamp her ticket for the Paris Olympics in 2024. So about as successful as an August can get for an athlete, and I caught up with her to congratulate her on her Athlete of the Month title. Hello, Taylor Knibb, and thank you for joining us on GTN. Firstly, congratulations on PTO Athlete of the Month for August.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on GTN.
Pretty successful August, I would say. Is your head spinning a little bit?
Well, a little bit, but Anthony just informed me that I won by 1 point. So I got 12 points and Rico Bogan got 11. So it wasn't like a clear and away win. So I'm very grateful. And there's a lot of great racing and big racing in the month. So it's an honor.
You also got yourself up to 2nd in the PTO World Rankings. Is that something you actually look at, or is that just a bonus at the end of the year?
Well, I've been told that, but I still have a score from last year. So that'll very much fall very quickly. So I think that's where you have to, it's weird with the rolling cycle now. You have to kind of look, okay, who has 2023 only, who has 2022 races still in there and how many of each. But I'm like, it's kind of it is a bonus. So you're not, I don't know, some athletes might be chasing that ranking, but I'm focused on individual day performances. And I got to have 3 of those in August.
All of this August success was on the back of a comeback of a pretty nasty injury that took you out for quite a while. How much of this is kind of making hay while the sun shines, while you are injury-free and healthy and just, absolutely smashing everything that comes along because you can and you're fit and healthy? And how much of this would you actually have done anyway, even if there was no injury comeback or anything like that?
Well, the injury I think is like very separate, and I hope it's in the distant past. I had a non-union fracture, so I think that, and I raced on it all last fall. So I think like the positive I had with that is the fact that like, while it didn't heal, it also didn't break, but my choice is to get surgery. And so I did that, and I'm just grateful to be back racing. As
I said earlier, you stamped your ticket for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, and obviously that's going to be your main focus for 2024. But what is Taylor Knibb doing between now and then? Are we just focusing on Paris, or is there perhaps another race? There's been a few rumors that you may be heading to Kona.
Well, so I will be on the Big Island the day the race occurs because my mom's racing. I do have a starting position, and I'm not sure yet. I don't want to risk my health, as I've learned in the past 15 months. Health is very important. But if I have the opportunity, I don't know. So I'm not sure yet. We'll see on October 14th.
Okay, very non-committal, but you will be on the island. So we'll all cross our fingers that you show up there and race, because we'd love to see you race. But yeah, don't do anything dangerous for your health. Thank you very much for joining us, Taylor. Good luck if you do go to Kona, and either way, good luck for the season, and we'll see you somewhere soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now it's time for our talking point, and we are discussing the Ironman World Champs in Nice, and particularly the split Ironman World Champs, more than a month apart and half a world apart between the men and the women. The race has been run and won, and we'll go through all those results, or Mark will jump in later to give you all the results and the epic performances that happened there. But we want to discuss and get your opinion on the success of splitting the World Championships and having a men's-only World Championships as we have done this past week. Bearing in mind, of course, that the Women's World Championships is still coming in a month, and of course, that may be super successful and really exciting, and therefore this conversation will completely change in the next month. But even so, I think it's worth talking about right now. From my perspective, and talking to my wife on the weekend, we felt that with the men's-only race, the coverage lacked a little something. There was something that didn't fill the gaps, and not to say that women's racing fills the gap in men's racing at all, but Ironman's a long day, and there's lots of things that happen when you've got 2 races happening at the same time, and you can cut between them and see them both. When there's only 1 race happening, there are points of the course where it gets really kind of draggy. And of course, that also does mean that in a month's time, we'll be able to watch the entire women's race and not miss a minute of it. And that's obviously an important point, because we don't want to miss any of the women's racing. However, Ironman is a long day, and there are lots of slow periods in the course that need to be filled. And if you can't fill that with another race happening simultaneously, you have to fill it with something else. And unfortunately, Ironman don't tend to fill that with really enlightening commentary and in-depth analysis. They tend to fill it with adverts. Anyway, this is not just our opinion. We are also getting someone else's opinion on this. None other than the great Jan Frodeno weighed in on this.
I love the race. I love the event. I understand the concept of what they're trying to achieve. I believe that Kona still historically is the one thing that puts triathlon on the map, because people recognize Hawaii. It's not a world, somehow, somewhere along the line it got termed the World Championship. But really, people who don't know about triathlon, they just want to know if you've done Hawaii before. And I'm open to all of these discussions, and I think progressing the sport, recognizing the needs of the community, blah, 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 all that. But man, it's a stupid idea to separate men and women. it feels like boarding school. Like, why? I don't get it. Like, it worked for 40 years. The equality argument is rubbish because it's been the most equal sport, and like nobody felt underdone. I mean, 5 years ago, Ironman wasn't happy to give the pro women an extra 15 slots to make equal numbers, and now we need to separate it. And it's such a family sport, such a family event. Like, it makes no sense to me. I understand the numbers and business model, and that's what Ironman is. They're a sports event company providing all that. But whatever terms, we need to find a solution, in my opinion, where men and women race together. Like, whether it be on separate days, but it's all part of the dynamic. Seeing the women and following the race, and while you're in it, you're even seeing it. But as a spectator, you've got 2 races, and I just thought it was a strange kind of testosterone party yesterday, when everybody sort of, it is a male-dominated sport in terms of pure numbers and inscriptions and everything, but it's weird from pre-race briefings and jitters, and I miss seeing the women's race. I don't know, maybe I'll fly out, but I'll be a handful of people who gets that opportunity to see the race. And personally, I think it's a pity. Like, I would really like to see the racing come back together and grow in a different way, that you don't have to do 1 year here, 1 year there. And
Well, Jan clearly getting fairly animated there and feeling quite passionate about it, and feeling that something was missing on the day, a testosterone fest, as he called it, without the women's race in there, and worrying that a similar fate may befall the women's race in a month's time in Kona. So what do you guys think? Are Ironman better off tightening up the qualification again, making it a very elite field, and having smaller qualification fields so that you can fit everyone in one race on one day, like we've had in the past in Kona, but obviously making the qualification that much harder? And should it stay in Kona, or was the new venue adding a whole lot, but still they need to tighten up the qualification so that it all happens on one day, men's and women's? Or have Ironman actually got it right, and having a split world champ split by weeks and thousands of miles actually the right way to go about it, where you can watch the entire men's race and then you can watch the entire women's race without any distractions or any splitting the coverage between both? Well, leave your answers down below, leave your comments down below. We'd love to hear from you and weigh in on this. Personally, I kind of agree with Jan. I feel like it's a bit of a step backwards. It almost feels like you segregating men's and women's races, and we see it in the world of cycling, where men's races happen almost completely separate from women's races. They don't even exist in the same ecosystem at the moment, and I don't think it's good for the women's sport, and I don't think it's good for the sport in general. I feel like there are epic performances that can be on display, both men's and women's, and can be on display on the same day. I don't know whether you agree with me or not, and maybe I'll be proved wrong. Maybe we'll see some absolutely epic performances and an amazing day of racing in a month's time in Kona, and the women will put on a spectacular show, even more spectacular than the men's one, and there will be no empty periods in the coverage, and I will be eating my words. I certainly hope so. I'm looking forward to watching that women's race in Kona, but I do feel like there may be long drags as the women make their way along the Queen K Highway, where we're just watching more and more adverts while we fill the time. Anyway, leave your comments down below. I'm sure this is a conversation that's going to keep happening between now and their successful or not so successful running of the Kona women's race, and then probably for a long time after that, while everyone decides whether doing the same thing for the next 3 years is the right way to go about it, or whether Ironman should pull the pin and change it immediately. Well, it all remains to be seen. Now it's time for What the Tech, and starting with Wahoo and Zwift being friends again. Last week we reported that Wahoo and Zwift have dropped the patent infringement lawsuit that Wahoo had brought against Zwift for their creation of the Zwift Hub, saying it copied their Kickr core. They had dropped all of those patents and all counterclaims relating to it. But they've taken it a step further, it seems, and they've actually become friends again. In a joint statement shared today, both Zwift and Wahoo have said they will embark on a renewed approach to collaboration, selling each other's products on their websites. They added, Wahoo has granted Zwift a limited license to use its patents. Zwift will continue to sell its Zwift Hub smart trainer in existing e-commerce markets, that is the US, UK and Europe. In addition to selling Zwift Hub, Zwift will return to selling a selection of Wahoo smart trainers, bikes and accessories on Zwift.com from mid-September. The assorted range will offer customers a simple selection across a range of price points, all sold with 1 year on Zwift. Wahoo Fitness will also offer customers the option to bundle 1 year of Zwift with the purchase of a smart trainer or bike via wahoofitness.com. Doesn't that feel good? And particularly good because Wahoo have also released some new tech, some new products to go with this announcement. That's right, yesterday Wahoo launched their new Kickr Shift, a more affordable version of their Kickr bike, and they also launched the Wahoo Kickr Move, a Wahoo Kickr trainer with a rocker plate built into it. First, let's talk about the Kickr Shift, which is essentially a stationary bike for indoors. Now, Wahoo already offer their Kickr bike, which is their top-end stationary bike, and now they offer the Shift, which basically offers almost everything that Kickr bike does for $1,000 cheaper. Instead of motor resistance, the new Kickr Shift bike uses brake and belt technology, so lightning fast resistance changes to both changes in grade and power output. It still offers that erg easy ramp mode. It has a +20 and -15 grade simulation, so you can feel yourself going uphill and downhill. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity and a 1% power accuracy, so it's accurate. In fact, the only thing it doesn't have over the Kickr bike is the physical tilt. The bike doesn't actually rock forward and backwards like the Kickr bike does. But for $1,000 cheaper, that may be something you can do without. And then Wahoo have released the Kickr Move, a stationary trainer that is not quite stationary. If you're familiar with the rocker plates, those big plates that you put in your garage and you mount your trainer on so that you've got some fore-aft movement and also some rocking, so it really makes your bike feel like you're outdoors. Well, now this is all integrated into the Kickr itself. So you get that real-world feel while you're still on the stationary trainer. And surprisingly, this new Kickr Move is still compatible with the Kickr Climb adapter, although you do need to put a new foot on it so that it can move with you. It costs $1,599, which is $300 more than the normal Wahoo Kickr. What I would say is probably worth it. I haven't actually tried it yet, but I have tried a rocker plate, and it does make a big difference to how you activate your whole body and how much it feels like the outside riding. So I think it's probably worth it if you are trying to simulate outdoor riding. One caveat to that though is that if you're racing on Zwift with a rocker plate, you tend to have significantly lower power outputs because you don't have that stationary base to push off. And if you're racing against people who don't have a rocker plate or the Kickr Move that allow you to move, they're going to have significantly higher power output than you. However, don't worry. The Kickr Move does have a lockout mode, so you can lock it out when you're racing those people on Zwift, and then the rest of the time you can train realistically like you would be riding your bike outdoors. Also, to go along with these two products, Wahoo have also launched an out-of-the-box setup and assembly flow app so that you can get yourself set up properly on all these things. They walk you through every aspect of getting set up, including changing your cassette and everything else like that, so you get properly set up. Also get your bike set up right, adjusting all 5 different parameters on that bike to make sure that you fit perfectly, and it all walks you through on the web-based app so that they don't have to print as much stuff, which is definitely an eco-saving, much less packaging, but also that much more user-friendly. And here is the kicker. You can win one. See what I did there, the kicker? You can win a Kickr Move. Yep, click the link down below our show and you could be winning. Entries close on the 10 o'clock on Saturday, 23rd of September, and winners will be announced on the GTN show on the 27th of September. So if you fancy a Kickr Move for yourself, get entering down below. And one more bit of tech news we noticed this week. Adidas have released a completely illegal shoe. Not entirely sure why, but if you watch Patrick Lange race Challenge Roth to an impressive win, he ran a 2:30.27 marathon, getting agonizingly close to breaking that magical 2 hour 30 mark for an Ironman marathon. He just missed it, and he was wearing illegal shoes. Now, for some reason, and we're not really sure why, probably just so that he could break that magical mark, the shoe rules that World Triathlon and Ironman and all the other brands adhere to were thrown out the window for that race, and Patrick Lange was actually racing in these particular Adidas shoes. They are the Adidas Zero Prime X2 Strung, and they are 50 millimeters high, whereas the limit for all shoes is 40 millimeters. They also have 2 carbon plates running in parallel, which they're not allowed to do in, you have to have a single carbon plate in any legal shoes. So they are completely illegal. And we kind of thought, well, he'll use them for, it was just an experiment, he'll use them for that race. Roth will never allow illegal shoes again, and no other triathlons will, and we'll never see them again. But for some reason, Adidas have decided that these need to go to the consumers. So they're now available to buy. I'm not entirely sure what for. I'm not sure what you're going to use them for. I guess you could go run your own PB. I'm not sure whether they're banning them at park runs, so you can maybe run a really fast park run time, but you can't enter any official competition wearing them, or you may risk being disqualified. But if you are interested in going and running a PB, they will only cost you a cool $300 for shoes that you can't wear in any actual races. But apparently Adidas thinks there's a market for it, and I think it's a bit of a proof of concept. Like, if you let us run free, we can make the fastest shoe in the world by a long shot. I can't imagine it'll be too long before we see Adidas doing a sub-2 attempt in this shoe, and definitely they'll be going well sub-2. Yeah, still not really sure where the market is for $300 shoes you can't wear in races.
Well, now for the race news. So, yep, I'm jumping back in here because the most notable race this weekend was obviously the men's Ironman World Championships here in Nice. If you'd like to check out our recap video, it's already on the channel. We go into far more detail on the happenings and what went on, then do go and check that out. But I'm going to run through the main details very quickly here. So, it was obviously a non-wetsuit swim because, well, it's very tropical here in the water. We had 12 men coming out of the water together. It was Matthew Marquardt that actually led that swim out, but he had the likes of Jan Frodeno, Sam Laidlow, Rudy von Berg, Clement Mignon, Dennis Chevreau and Brad Weiss with them. A minute back from that, we had Patrick and Magnus, and then 3:21 back, we had the likes of Cam Worth and Leon Chevalier. Notably, Joe Skipper seemed to be having a really rough time. He was about 5:33 back from that. Out onto the bike, well, on the first climb, we saw Sam and Clement really kicking on, and by about 70k in, they had about 2.5 minutes on the rest of the field. Clement subsequently then actually fell off the pace, or fell off Sam, allowing Sam to just continue on his own. Clement then sort of fell back through the field somewhat. Meanwhile, also Jan Frodeno seemed to be struggling a little bit and also falling back through the field. We did unfortunately see a couple of penalties. So Brad Weiss actually got a 5-minute penalty for supposedly drafting, although we actually saw him solo and really going quite well. He was in 4th place at the time of receiving that. Braden Curry also got a penalty around 110k for a littering violation. Apparently he dropped some litter outside of the drop zone. He also was having issues with the zipper, so really having quite a rough day. Sam was actually first off the bike with a massive lead of over 5 minutes. Next in was Rudy von Berg and Magnus Ditlev, and then we had Cam Worth, who had worked his way up all the way from 23rd out of the swim up to 4th off the bike. He was another 2 minutes behind, and then we had Leon and Clement coming in next, 11 minutes back from Sam. Out onto the run, and Sam Laidlow was just on fire. He seemed to be holding his pace incredibly well, and that gap to the other runners. The only person he wasn't holding to was Patrick Lange, who was absolutely flying through the field. He was by far the fastest on course. Sam continued on to take the win in an incredible time of 8 hours and 6 minutes, which really is pretty phenomenal on this course and in the heat that they had to endure. Patrick Lange came in second, managing to pass Magnus Ditlev and Rudy von Berg in the final kilometres, posting a phenomenal 2:32.41 for the marathon. It was Magnus Ditlev that rounded out the podium in third, Rudy von Berg in fourth, and Leon Chevalier in fifth.
Thanks, Mark, for that update. Doesn't look like it was much fun there at all. My mates went to Nice and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. Okay, it's not a lousy t-shirt, it's actually quite a nice t-shirt if you check it out. And you can buy it right now on the shop. Or if you're completely over Nice and you're looking directly ahead to Kona, well, you can also get that on our shop, a nice Kona t-shirt. So head over to the shop and get yours now. I think I prefer the Kona one anyway, Mark. So there. Anyway, that wasn't the only race happening this past week, so let's run through the rest of the race results from around the world. Starting with Ironman 70.3 Sunshine Coast in Australia, and it was an Australian win across the board. So Rebecca Clark took the win ahead of Radka Karlefeld, with Sophie Perry in third on the women's side, and then Nick Thompson was ahead of Nicholas Free, and Mitchell Kibbe was in third all-Australian podium on the men's side there. Then we had Challenge Elmere, which is the long-distance European triathlon champs. Els Visser from the Netherlands took the win there ahead of Marlene de Boer, with Katrien Christensen taking third. On the men's side, Menno Koolhaas took the win with Kieran Linders in second and Milan Brons in third. And you should have seen Kieran Linders crossing that finish line. In fact, I'm going to find a video for you quickly. Here it is. Yeah, well done, Kieran Linders, for hanging on there, or crawling your way to that finish line and hanging on for second place. We did get an update the following day that he was completely fine and had fully recovered, so he's okay. Tough way to get second place, though. We also had the World Cup from World Triathlon in Karalivari in Hungary. Gwen Jorgensen took her second World Cup win in as many weeks, or in 1 week, really, after winning in Valencia last week. For those of you who haven't been following, the 2016 Rio Olympic gold medalist took a bit of a break from the sport. Last week's win in Valencia was, in fact, her first win of a World Triathlon event in 2,569 days. That's 7 years for those who need me to help them do the maths. She basically retired from the sport after Rio 2016 and that gold medal. She had kids, and now she's making a comeback in an attempt to get to Paris 2024. She hasn't got her ticket stamped yet for that Team USA, but she's on the right track after these last two wins. Gwen Jorgensen took the win there, outsprinting Rachel Klammer, and Marlene Gomez-Gogol was in third. On the men's side, it was another US athlete who took the win, and that was Morgan Pearson. He, of course, has already stamped his ticket for the Team USA for Paris 2024. He got, I think, sixth place at the Paris test event, so he is in. But obviously, he's showing that he's in good form. He was ahead of Mark Devey of Hungary in second, with Jonas Schomburg taking third. Coming up this week, we have Ironman Italy and Ironman Maryland. There are 70.3s in Belgium and Michigan. And of course, there's also Challenge Samarkand, which is in Uzbekistan, which is where I'm going, actually, to do a triathlon. I haven't done a triathlon for quite a while, and I've never been to Uzbekistan, so stay tuned to the channel, because I'll be bringing you a video from there and I'm telling you all about it. Should be interesting. All right, now it's time for our pin board. And remember, this month we are asking for your post-race smiles when everything's gone great, and we want to see how happy you are looking after the race. And we got this one from Renata, who was looking really happy in Sandusky, Ohio, in the USA. In order to save money on a hotel for our first 70.3 and make my race more of a family experience, we decided to do a camping trip at a nearby state park during race week. My kids love camping, and we all had fun spending time at the beach, fishing, riding bikes around the campground, and eating lots of s'mores. My kids were also the best at cheering during the half marathon, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate the end of a long day of racing than spending the evening round the campfire telling silly jokes with the kids. And yes, I am wearing my medal in the campground. If I earn it, I'll wear it all day. It won't be my last 70.3, and I'll definitely do a family camping trip on race week again. Wow, I'm glad it all went really well, and it looks like that is a proper post-race smile, and you can wear your medal for as long as you like. Well done for earning it, Renata. Also, we got this one from Bob in Mont Tremblant, and he says, my first triathlon, the 5150 Mont Tremblant, it was epic. And that's about as happy as a guy can look crossing the finish line. So well done, Bob. We also got this one from Julie, also in Mont Tremblant. After DNS at Ironman Switzerland 6 weeks before due to an unfortunate illness that ended in a Swiss ER, the finish line at Mont Tremblant was a happy sight for me. And she also looks very happy to be running over that finish line. Brilliant smile there. And then we've got Daniel, who sent this one. Post-race celebratory donut after Ironman 70.3 Morro Bay. This was my slowest 70.3 result, but actually my best ever executed race, and I'm really proud of the result. In the 8 months leading up to this race, I had retired, relocated my family from the UK back to the US, remodeled our home, and gone back to school full-time to prepare for a new career. Needless to say, my training hadn't been going great into the race, but I performed beyond what little training I had accomplished or should have prepared me to do. I had even managed to walk back to our truck on my own, a feat I hadn't been able to do the last time I completed an Ironman 70.3. And when my wife surprised me with a box of donuts, I just couldn't handle it and I had to have a little lie down. It was all too much in the best possible way. And yeah, he says this is the best donut I have ever had. That was a proper post-race smile, and you definitely earned that donut, or the whole box, I think. I hope you had the whole box. And finally, we have this one from Andy, which doesn't actually fit in our category of post-race smiles, but we can't resist a little bit of bike porn. Andy sent this one in from Knockburn Lock in Scotland, saying, loving the new bike, helped me win the 50-54 age group at the Scottish Triathlon Champs yesterday, and he has got a very good looking Cadex Tri bike there, the same one ridden by a certain Christian Blumenfeld, and clearly it's doing well for him too. Well done, Andy, on your win. Say what? Okay, I went through some of our comments on some of our videos for the last week, and I picked this one out. Now, it never does well to go and look at your pre-race predictions after the race has been run and done, but I did exactly that. And Nicholas actually commented on it long before the race and said, can't believe you disregarded Sam Ledlow. Best bike time in Hawaii, and he's a small guy, so great power to weight ratio. Well, Nicholas, I guess we have to tip our hat to you because you called it, and you were the only one on all of our comments who actually tipped Sam Ledlow. So yeah, hats off to you. He goes on to say though, I'm not betting on him for the win, but definitely first out on the run. Oh, Nicholas, you were doing so well until you added that last line. You should have just picked him for the win. You were right there. Oh, you got to know when to stop talking. Anyway, that's it for this week's show. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week. If you're looking for something to watch right now, we obviously have all of our Nice content, including Mark sat down with Gustav Eden and Christian Blumenfeld, both who didn't race, but a very funny interview there. Also, our tech tours, part 1 and part 2, so all the tech from Nice. Also coming up later this week on the channel, Heather and Mark went and did a C2 Summit triathlon while they were out in Nice, and by all accounts, it was a pretty epic day out. So watch out for that coming out later this week on the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.